Hey everyone, my name is Mohammed, and today I'm presenting our memorial on Nat Turner, who I describe as a prophet, rebel, and martyr. One important quote I included is when he said he felt like he was chosen for a greater purpose by God. This shows how strongly he believed his actions were not random, but something he was meant to do. In 1831, Nat Turner led one of the most significant slave rebellions in American history. He wasn't just acting out of anger, but out of deep religious belief. He truly thought God had chosen him to take action. This memorial is meant to help understand his mindset and why he did what he did.
I will go over the images that represent Nat Turner and the events that took place following his revolt. Starting out with the 1831 woodcut, this woodcut served as the front and centerpiece for Samuel Warner's authentic and impartial narrative of the tragical scene which was witnessed in Southampton County. Published shortly after the uprising, the illustration has two panels. The upper section shows four numbered scenes, including a mother pleading for her children, enslaved men killing their white enslaver, and a husband fighting off the attacker so his wife and child could escape, while the lower panel shows mounted soldiers chasing the rebels into the woods. It was meant to be used as propaganda, meant to frame the enslaved people as violent and dangerous rather than acknowledging the revolt as resistance against brutal oppression. These images spread fast throughout the South, giving slaveholders cover to unleash retaliatory violence that left hundreds of enslaved people beaten or killed, and pushing legislators to pass new laws locking down on black communities even further. Looking at these images, they represent how plantations were like. Slave laborers in the South worked from sunup to sundown, 7 days a week, with no pay, no rights, and no legal protection from the violence used to control them. On Virginia farms like the one Nat Turner worked on, the labor never let up, clearing fields, planting and harvesting crops, maintaining land that made their enslavers rich. They had no claim over their time, their families, or their own bodies. Slaveholders could sell, beat, or kill enslaved people with little to no consequences, and families were torn apart at the auction on a regular basis. This was the world that Nat Turner grew up in. A deeply religious man who taught himself to read, he saw the brutality around him, not just as physical suffering, but as moral wrong, and he believed that God called him to fight. The rebellion he led in August 1831 was not a random violence. It was the response of a man who had spent his entire life watching his people be worked to death with no way out, and he decided that he was done waiting and wanted to act. Looking at some documents that took place after the massacre, this specific one here has a list of the slaves executed during the revolt. It shows their name, their owner's name, and the date that they were executed. Following the revolt, Nat Turner went into hiding, and he remained hidden for a little over 2 months. During that time, rewards were being sent out to anyone who could find him. This specific document was signed by Governor John Floyd on September 17, 1831, with a reward of $500 for anyone who could capture Nat Turner and bring him to Southampton County Jail. When Nat Turner eventually got caught, after the rebellion was thwarted by the local militia, he was eventually captured, and gave his confessions to Thomas R. Gray in prison. During his confession, Turner described himself as a deeply religious man and claimed that he received visions from God to rise up against slavery. He explained how he organized the revolt and led the killing of dozens of white people. It was believed that Turner accepted his faith and that he had fulfilled his divine purpose, but this interpretation could have been added by Gray himself.
The history page of the Nat Turner Memorial. Background. Nat Turner was born on October 2nd, 18,000, into slavery on the Benjamin Turner Plantation in Southampton County, Virginia. From a young age, he was recognized as exceptional. Those around him believed that he had knowledge of things that have happened before his birth. He taught himself to read, devoted himself to studying the Bible, and became a preacher among the enslaved community. He didn't just read scripture, he lived it. He believed God had chosen him for a special purpose, and he spent years quietly waiting for that sign. The timeline will walk through 3 phases of his life. his early years, the rebellion, and its immediate aftermath. So, early life from 1800 to 1830. In 1821, Turner escapes the plantation and stays free for about a month, but then voluntarily returns. His fellow enslaved people were quite shocked, and Turner had explained that a spirit had told him that his mission wasn't complete yet. He was waiting for something much bigger. Through the late 1820s, his visions grow much more specific, and he describes as seeing white and black spirits battling in the skies and blood on the corn. He begins sharing these visions with a small group of trusted men. Then on February 12, 1831, a solar eclipse passes over Southampton County, a signal he had been waiting for, and begins planning. He originally planned to act on July 4th, but fell ill and pushed it back to August. On the night of August 21st, Turner and 6 trusted men begin at the home of his enslaver, Joseph Travis. He moved farm by farm, freeing enslaved people and growing their numbers as they go. At its peak, the group reaches approximately 60 men moving towards Jerusalem, Virginia, where the armory was located. Across multiple farms, 55 white people are killed, making this the deadliest slave revolt in American history. Within 2 days, militia and state troops scattered the group before they even reached that armory. And the aftermath, Turner escapes into hiding for more than 2 months before being discovered on October 30th, sheltering in a hole under a pile of fence rails. While in jail, he is interviewed by a lawyer, Thomas Gray, who publishes the account as The Confessions of Nat Turner. It remains the only first-hand record of Turner's words, but filtered entirely through Gray's perspective. Turner is trialed on November 5th, pleads not guilty, and is convicted in less than a day. He is hanged on November 11th, 1831, and he was only 31 years old. Here are some of the videos that could help. To close, following the rebellion, Virginia passed sweeping laws banning education, assembly, and worship without a white minister present for both enslaved and free black Virginians. For nearly 2 centuries, the public memory of Nat Turner was shaped by white-controlled records that centered the fears of enslavers over the lives of the enslaved. This memorial exists to correct that record.
After Nat Turner's rebellion, a lot of things changed in the country. First, the abolitionist movement became stronger. People like William Lloyd Garrison were already speaking against slavery, but after the rebellion, the message became serious and urgent. Turner didn't just argue that slavery was wrong, he showed that it could lead to violence and instability. Another major result was that tensions in the country kept growing, which eventually led toward the Civil War. Leaders like John C. Calhoun started defending slavery more strongly, calling it a positive good. This shows how divided the country was becoming. Even though Turner was executed in 1831, what he started didn't end there. His rebellion added pressure that kept building until slavery was finally ended in 1865. One of the biggest immediate reactions to the rebellion was stricter control over enslaved people. Southern states quickly passed laws to prevent enslaved and even free black people from learning how to read and write. They believed that education could lead to rebellion, so they tried to limit knowledge. For example, laws were passed that made it illegal to teach enslaved people literacy. The reasoning behind this was that if people could read, they might question slavery or organize resistance. This shows that instead of fixing the problem, the response was to increase control and fear.